Hi everyone, welcome back to Crafty Not Shifty. Today I'm going to be talking to you about decoupage or decoupage, whichever you call it. I'm going to be looking at different types of papers that you can use to create a decoupage effect. So the first thing that you're going to need is some small pieces of ripped up paper. You'll also need some glue. I'm using Mod Podge, but you could use watered down PVA, and a paintbrush. I'm going to be adding some papers to this distress ink holder. I've already made a start here. If you're interested in this distress ink holder and how I put it together, I'll have a link to a video below. So we're going to be applying small pieces of this paper that I've ripped into random sized sections. I'm using this Decoupage paper. It's a really thin but durable paper that's specifically designed for decoupage. You get 3 of these sheets that are a really nice size. So you can actually rip the paper around each of the butterflies, or you can just rip it into small random segments, which is what I'm choosing to do here. So the second type of material I'm going to use is this pink crepe paper. It's really inexpensive. It's very thin. It's much more translucent when compared to the decoupage paper. But it's a really nice way to do this craft, maybe with some children, using some inexpensive stuff that you might have lying around the house. So I'm just ripping that until I have the bowl nice and full. And then for the third material, I'm going to use this leftover Disney wrapping paper. And again, I'm ignoring the design on the paper for the most part, but I am ripping out a couple of those princesses to lay over the top, and I'll show you that in just a moment. So I'm going to get started. The first thing that you want to do is apply a coat of your glue to a small area. You want to make sure that it's a manageable area. You don't want the glue to dry while you're still working on it. And you just want to apply each piece of paper with glue underneath, and then layer glue on top to seal it in place. And when you're applying these, you want to make sure that you go around all of the edges and you overlap each piece of paper slightly. Now the wrapping paper isn't designed to accept this much moisture, so as you can see it will crinkle as you apply the glue, but that'll smooth out slightly as it dries. So next onto the crepe paper. And because this is so translucent, I decided to do the white portion of this box. If you were covering something that had a pattern on it already, you might want to paint it white first, otherwise that pattern would show through. So the crepe paper was a little bit more difficult to apply because it does want to crinkle and crease quite readily. But if you just work with it, you do get a nice effect. And again, as it dries, it will smooth out a little bit. Another thing with the crepe paper is you can see where the edges overlap, so you do have to apply a couple of layers. And so now what I'm going to do with this Disney Princess box is I'm going to take each of those princesses that I've ripped out and I'm going to apply those over the top so there is a clear image along each side. And because these have been ripped and torn, it blends really nicely into the decoupage design. It doesn't kind of stand out as a kind of an image that you've cut out and placed on top. So make sure if you do this, you do rip the edges when you're cutting out any section of a design. And there you can see I've got a princess quite clearly on each of those sides. So now I'm going to move back to the decoupage paper, and you can see here just how smooth and crease free that paper applies. It's really nice to work with. You can cover quite a large surface quite quickly as long as it's quite a flat surface. I did cover the front of this distress ink holder, and that took a little bit longer because of all the nooks and crannies. But all you want to do whenever you're decoupaging is make sure you're using nice small pieces of ripped up paper, apply glue underneath each piece and over the top of each piece. And I really encourage you to give this a try. This was my first attempt at decoupaging, and I think I've fallen in love with another craft, so I'll definitely be trying it again. So here's a close-up of my finished distress ink holder using the decoupage paper. This is the part of the cube using the tissue or the crepe paper, and the one using the wrapping paper. So as you can see, these have really smoothed out as they've dried, and I think all 3 of them look really lovely. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you have, please click thumbs up and subscribe to see more from me. I have a link to my blog below where you can find out more information about this decoupage 3 ways.